allowed you piece of trash in here?
The first scream cut through the wedding hall like shattered glass. Music stopped. Laughter froze midair. Hundreds of expensive faces turned at once. At the center of the room, beneath crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's houses, stood an old woman in torn, filthy clothes, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. Her gray hair was matted, her slippers barely held together, and clutched in her shaking hands was a small, worn fabric bag that looked older than the building itself. But what truly stole the breath from the room was the young woman gripping her clothes. She didn't hesitate. She didn't flinch. With manic fury burning in her eyes, the woman in the champagne-colored gown yanked hard. The sound of fabric tearing echoed loudly. Gasps erupted. The elderly woman staggered forward, her dignity ripped along with the cloth. Her eyes widened in shock, her mouth trembling as though words wanted to come out, but none did. And still, the young woman laughed. A sharp, cruel laugh. "Look at her," she scoffed loudly. "Look at the audacity." Two muscular security guards stood just a few steps behind, arms folded, watching, waiting, ready to drag the old woman out like trash the moment they were told. Guests whispered. Phones slowly came up. Someone muttered, "She doesn't belong here." Someone else chuckled. And standing at the altar, straightening his cufflinks, utterly unbothered, was the groom. A billionaire, or so everyone believed. He glanced over briefly, frowned in annoyance, and said coldly, "Why is that thing still here?" That was all the permission she needed. The woman in the gown grabbed the old woman again, harder this time. "You disgusting parasite," she hissed. "You thought you could sneak into my wedding? Smelling like the streets." The elderly woman finally spoke, her voice cracked and weak. "Please, I only came to..." The woman tore her clothes again. Another tear, another scream, another laugh. What no one in that room knew was that this old woman had been watching them for years, and everything was about to change. The woman in the gown circled her victim slowly, like a predator enjoying the hunt. "Do you know how much this wedding costs?" she snapped. "Do you know how much the food you're breathing costs?" She turned to the crowd, playing her role perfectly. "Security," she shouted. "Why do you keep allowing trash into high-class events?" One of the guards smirked. She said she was invited. The crowd laughed. The woman threw her head back dramatically. "Invited? By who?" "The rats outside." More laughter. The old woman looked around desperately. Faces she didn't recognize, eyes filled with judgment, mouths twisted in disgust. She clutched her bag tighter. Inside it was something no one here would ever believe. But she stayed silent, because she had learned long ago that power reveals itself when people think you are powerless. The groom sighed impatiently. "Enough," he said. "Get her out before she ruins the pictures." The guards stepped forward. That was when the old woman raised her head slowly. Her eyes locked onto the woman who had torn her clothes. And for just half a second, the woman in the gown felt something strange. A chill, like she had seen those eyes before. But she shook it off. "You're staring?" she mocked. "What? You want to curse me?" She leaned closer, whispering venomously. "People like you die forgotten." The old woman said nothing. She simply reached into her bag and stopped. "Before we continue, welcome, lovers of powerful, emotional stories. Stories about karma, hidden identities, and shocking reversals. If you enjoy stories where pride meets consequences, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's continue. The old woman withdrew her hand from the bag, but empty. She wasn't ready. Not yet. The guard grabbed her arms. "Move," one barked. Her feet dragged against the marble floor as the crowd parted, watching like it was entertainment. The woman in the gown clapped mockingly. "Good riddance." But as the old woman was dragged past the groom, she paused, just for a second, and whispered something only he could hear. 3 words. His smile vanished. Color drained from his face. His knees nearly buckled. "Wait," he said sharply. The entire room froze. The guard stopped. The woman in the gown turned, confused. "What is it, darling?" The billionaire swallowed hard. His voice shook. Bring her back. The guards hesitated, exchanging confused glances. One of them tightened his grip on the old woman's arm, unsure whether he had heard correctly. Bring her back, the groom repeated, louder this time. A ripple of murmurs swept through the hall. Heads leaned together, brows furrowed. The woman in the champagne gown frowned deeply, her lips parting in disbelief. What do you mean, bring her back? She asked, forcing a laugh. She's ruining everything. The old woman was slowly turned around. Her feet shuffled against the polished marble as she faced the altar again. Her shoulders were hunched, her torn clothes hanging loosely from her frail body. Yet something about her posture had changed. She was no longer trembling. The groom stared at her as though he were seeing a ghost. Did you just say? His voice cracked? He cleared his throat. Did you just say the Hawthorne ledger? The room fell silent. The woman in the gown blinked. The what? The old woman lifted her chin slightly. Her eyes, still calm, still steady, met his. You heard me, she said softly. The Hawthorne ledger. The groom's hands began to shake. That book doesn't exist, he whispered. It was destroyed. A faint smile touched the corners of the old woman's lips. It was not mocking. It was not cruel. It was knowing. Destroyed, she echoed gently. No, it was stolen. By your father. And later by you. A sharp gasp escaped the bride-to-be. What is she talking about? She snapped. Why are you listening to this lunatic? But the groom wasn't listening to her anymore. He stepped down from the altar, each step heavy, measured. The guests watched, confused, enthralled. Cameras quietly rose again, recording what felt like a moment that should not exist. How do you know that name? He demanded, standing just a few feet from the old woman. She looked up at him, really looked at him now. And for the first time, he noticed something beyond the dirt and torn fabric. He noticed the sharpness in her gaze, the intelligence, the weight of years spent watching, waiting. I wrote it, she said. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. The groom staggered back as though struck. No, he breathed. That's impossible. You were young then, she continued calmly, still hiding behind your father's shadow. You didn't know my face. You only knew my numbers. The woman in the gown stepped forward angrily. This is ridiculous. She's lying. Security, take her out now. No one moved. The guards looked uncertain. The groom raised a hand without turning around. No one touches her. His voice was barely above a whisper now. Show me, he said to the old woman. Please. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her worn bag. The same bag she had clutched while being mocked. The same bag no one had bothered to question. She pulled out a thin, weathered folder. The groom's breath caught. The logo stamped faintly on the corner, almost erased by time, was unmistakable. His knees gave way. He dropped to the floor. The room erupted into chaos. What's going on? Is this real? Did he just kneel? The woman in the gown screamed. Get up. This is embarrassing. But the groom was no longer listening to her at all. Tears welled in his eyes as he reached out with trembling hands, careful, reverent, as though touching something sacred. You're supposed to be dead, he whispered. I was, the old woman replied. To the world you built. The guards released her arms. She stood freely now. Silence swallowed the hall. I watched, she continued, her voice steady but heavy with memory. I watched as you took my life's work. I watched as you built your empire on it. I watched as you renamed it. And I watched as you forgot where it came from. The bride-to-be laughed hysterically. This is insane. You're all insane. She turned to the guests. Someone say something. No one did. The groom bowed his head. I didn't know, he said weakly. I swear. My father taught you how to steal politely, the old woman finished, and how to erase people quietly. She took a step forward. For years, I waited, she said, not for revenge, for truth. Her eyes flicked briefly to the woman in the gown. And today, she added softly, truth arrived dressed in cruelty. The woman in the gown went pale. What are you implying? She demanded. The old woman turned fully to face her now. You tore my clothes, she said evenly. You mocked my poverty. You paraded my humiliation as entertainment. She paused, and yet, she continued, You stood beside a man whose wealth exists because I once chose mercy. The groom looked up sharply. Mercy? Yes, the old woman said. I could have fought. I could have destroyed your father when he betrayed me. But I didn't. She gestured around the lavish hall. This, she said, is what mercy built. Tears streamed down the groom's face now. I'll fix it, he pleaded. I'll give it back. Everything. The old woman shook her head slowly. No, she said. You won't. She turned toward the guests. You see, she continued, this was never about ownership. She looked back at him. It was about exposure. She reached in her bag again. This time, she pulled out her phone. One tap. A large screen behind the altar flickered to life. Numbers appeared. Documents. Signatures. Proof. Gasps echoed like thunder. The bride-to-be screamed. Security rushed forward again, but not toward the old woman. Toward the groom. The old woman watched quietly as chaos unfolded, as power shifted, as masks fell, as the empire began to crack. And still, she stood there in torn clothes, unbowed, unbroken, watching the world finally see her.